Judges 1, Israel's battles after Joshua. After Joshua's death, the children of Israel sought the Lord, asking, "Who shall go up first against the Canaanites?" The Lord answered, "Judah shall go, I have delivered the land into his hand." Judah called upon Simeon, his brother, to join in battle, and together they struck down the Canaanites and Perizzites at Bezek, slaying 10,000. They captured Adoni-Bezek, who had cut off the thumbs and great toes of 70 kings. As he had done to others, so it was done to him. They brought him to Jerusalem, where he died. Judah fought for Jerusalem, taking it by the sword and setting it aflame. They pressed on into the hill country, the south, and the valleys, defeating Canaanites in Hebron, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. From there they went against the inhabitants of Debir. Caleb offered his daughter Achsah in marriage to the one who would take the city. Othniel, his nephew, captured it, and Achsah became his wife. She requested from her father springs of water, and Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. The descendants of Hobab, Moses' father-in-law, went with Judah into the wilderness of the Negev and dwelt among the people. Judah and Simeon together struck the Canaanites in Zephath, devoting the city to destruction, and captured Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron. The Lord was with Judah, yet they could not drive out those in the valley, because they had iron chariots. Caleb received Hebron as Moses had promised, driving out the sons of Anak. The tribe of Benjamin, however, failed to drive out the Jebusites from Jerusalem, and they lived among them. The house of Joseph went up against Bethel with the Lord's favor. They spared a man who showed them the entrance to the city. He and his family fled to the land of the Hittites and built a new city called Luz. But many tribes failed to fully drive out the Canaanites. Manasseh did not expel the inhabitants of Beth-shean, Tanakh, Dor, Iblim, or Megiddo. Ephraim left the Canaanites in Gezer. Zebulun allowed them to remain in Kitron and Nahalol, though they made them pay tribute. Asher dwelt among the Canaanites, failing to possess Sidon and other towns. Naphtali also lived among them, leaving Kedesh and other cities unconquered. The Amorites pressed the tribe of Dan into the hill country, refusing them the valleys, and their borders stretched from Scorpion Pass to Selah and beyond. Thus began the incomplete conquest, victories mixed with compromise, leaving the seeds of struggle that would trouble Israel for generations. Judges 2, the angel's rebuke, and the rise of Israel's unfaithfulness. The angel of the Lord came from Gilgal to Bochim, declaring, "I brought you up from Egypt, into the land sworn to your fathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you. But you were commanded to make no pact with the nations of this land, to tear down their altars. Yet you have not obeyed. Therefore, I will no longer drive them out before you. They will be thorns in your sides, and their gods will ensnare you." Hearing this, the people lifted their voices in weeping. They named the place Bochim and offered sacrifices to the Lord. When Joshua dismissed the tribes, each went to possess its allotted land. Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, those who had seen the mighty works of the Lord. Joshua, son of Nun, servant of the Lord, died at 110 years and was buried in Timnath-Heres in the hill country of Ephraim. But after that generation passed, another arose who did not know the Lord or the deeds he had done for Israel. They did evil in his sight, serving the Baals. They abandoned the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of Egypt, and followed the gods of the surrounding peoples, bowing to them and provoking the Lord's anger. They forsook him entirely, serving Baal and Ashtaroth. In his wrath the Lord delivered them into the hands of plunderers and enemies who oppressed them. Wherever they went, his hand was against them for disaster, as he had sworn. Great distress fell upon them. Yet the Lord, in mercy, raised up judges to deliver them from their enemies. But they would not listen. They quickly turned aside, more corrupt than their fathers, chasing other gods and bowing to them. They refused to abandon their stubborn ways. When the Lord raised up judges, he was with them, delivering Israel from oppression, for he had compassion when they groaned under their tormentors. But when the judge died, they turned back, even more corrupt, serving other gods, bowing to them, forsaking the covenant, and ignoring his commands. The Lord's anger burned against Israel. He said, "Because this nation has transgressed my covenant and not obeyed my voice, I will no longer drive out the nations Joshua left. I will use them to test Israel, to see whether they will keep the way of the Lord as their fathers did. Thus the Lord left those nations, not driving them out quickly, nor delivering them into Joshua's hand. Judges 3. Tests, bondage, and deliverance. The Lord left certain nations in Canaan to test Israel: Philistines, Canaanites, Sidonians, Hivites, nations Joshua had not destroyed. These remained to teach later generations the ways of war and to reveal whether Israel would keep the Lord's commands given through Moses. But Israel intermarried with them, served their gods, and turned from the Lord. In his wrath, the Lord delivered them into the hand of Chushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. For 8 years they served him in bondage. Then they cried out to the Lord, and he raised up Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him. He judged Israel, went to war, and defeated the king. The land had rest for 40 years until Othniel died. Again Israel did evil. The Lord strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, who allied with Ammon and Amalek, and they took Jericho. For 18 years Israel served Moab. They cried out, and God raised up Ehud, a left-handed man of Benjamin. He brought tribute to Eglon, then returned with a hidden double-edged dagger. Alone with the king in his cool chamber, Ehud declared, "I have a message from God for you," and thrust the blade into his belly until it disappeared. Locking the doors behind him, Ehud escaped. He rallied Israel in the hill country of Ephraim, cut off the fords of the Jordan, and struck down 10,000 Moabites. Moab fell, and the land had rest for 80 years. After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath. With only an ox goad, he struck down 600 Philistines, delivering Israel yet again. Judges 4. Deborah, Barak, and the fall of Sisera. Again Israel did evil after Ehud's death, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, whose commander was Sisera, dwelling in Harosheth of the Gentiles. For 20 years, with 900 iron chariots, Sisera cruelly oppressed Israel. The people cried out, and God raised up Deborah, a prophetess, wife of Lapidoth, who judged Israel under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel. She summoned Barak, son of Abinoam, saying, "Has not the Lord commanded? Go, gather 10,000 from Naphtali and Zebulun to Mount Tabor. The Lord will draw Sisera to the river Kishon and deliver him into your hand." Barak replied, "If you go with me, I will go. If not, I will not go." Deborah agreed but foretold, "The Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." Barak gathered his men, and Deborah went with him to Kadesh. Heber the Kenite had pitched his tent far from his kin, near Zenaim. Sisera, hearing of Barak's ascent, gathered his chariots and forces. Deborah urged Barak, "Up, for this is the day the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hand. Has not the Lord gone out before you?" Barak descended Mount Tabor, and the Lord threw Sisera's army into panic before the sword of Barak. Sisera fled on foot while his army fell by the edge of the sword. Sisera came to the tent of Jael, wife of Heber, who welcomed him. She covered him with a mantle. He asked for water, and she gave him milk. As he lay hidden, she took a tent peg and hammer, and while he slept, drove the peg through his temple into the ground, and he died. Barak arrived, and Jael showed him the lifeless body. That day God subdued Jabin before Israel, and the hand of Israel grew stronger until they destroyed him. Judges 5. The Song of Deborah and Barak. Then Deborah and Barak, son of Abinoam, sang on the day of victory. When leaders lead and the people willingly offer themselves, bless the Lord. Hear, O kings, give ear, O princes. I, even I, will sing to the Lord, the God of Israel. Lord, when you went out from Seir, the earth trembled, the heavens poured, the mountains quaked at your presence. In the days of Shamgar, in the days of Jael, highways lay deserted, villages were empty. Until I, Deborah, arose, a mother in Israel. New gods were chosen, and war reached the gates, yet shield and spear were nowhere to be seen. My heart is with the willing among Israel. Speak of it, you who ride on white donkeys, sit in judgment, or walk the roads. From the places of drawing water, let them recount the righteous acts of the Lord, the victories for his villages in Israel. Awake, awake, Deborah, arise, Barak, and lead your captives away. The remnant of the noble came down. The Lord's people marched against the mighty. Ephraim, Benjamin, Mashir, Zebulun, princes joined the cause. But Reuben lingered among the sheepfolds. Gilead stayed beyond Jordan. Dan remained with ships. Asher dwelt by the coast. Yet Zebulun and Naphtali risked their lives unto death. Kings came and fought. kings of Canaan at Tanakh by the waters of Megiddo, yet they took no spoil. The stars from heaven fought, the river Kishon swept the enemy away. Curse Meroz, said the angel of the Lord, for they came not to help the Lord against the mighty. Blessed above women is Jael, wife of Heber the Kenite. He asked for water, she gave milk. She struck Sisera, crushed his head, pierced and smote his temples. At her feet he sank, fell, and lay still. Through the lattice, the mother of Sisera looks out. Why is his chariot so long in coming? Her wise ladies answer her, yet she comforts herself with empty hope of spoil and garments taken from the foe. So let all your enemies perish, O Lord, but let those who love you be like the sun rising in its strength. And the land had rest 40 years. Judges 6, the call of Gideon. Again Israel did evil, and the Lord delivered them into Midian's hand for 7 years. The Midianites and Amalekites swarmed like locusts, devouring the land, leaving neither sheep, ox, nor donkey. Israel hid in mountains and caves, crushed beneath oppression, until they cried to the Lord. The Lord sent a prophet. I brought you from Egypt, delivered you from bondage, drove out your enemies, and said, Fear not the gods of the Amorites. Yet you have not obeyed me. Then the angel of the Lord came and sat under an oak in Ophrah, where Gideon threshed wheat in secret to hide from Midian. The angel said, The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Gideon answered, If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? Where are his wonders of old? Now he has forsaken us to Midian. The Lord replied, Go in the strength you have, you will save Israel. Have I not sent you? Gideon protested his weakness, but the Lord declared, Surely I will be with you, and you shall smite Midian as one man. Gideon asked for a sign. He prepared a young goat, unleavened cakes and broth, setting them on a rock. The angel touched them with his staff. Fire rose from the rock and consumed the offering, and the angel vanished. Gideon cried out, fearing death, but the Lord reassured him, Peace be to you, fear not. Gideon built an altar and called it, The Lord is Peace. That night the Lord commanded, Tear down your father's altar to Baal, cut down the Asherah beside it, and build an altar to the Lord, offering your father's bull. Gideon obeyed, but by night for fear of the people. In the morning the townsmen discovered it and demanded his death. Joash, his father, replied, If Baal is a god, let him plead for himself. From then on, Gideon was called Jerubbaal. The Midianites, Amalekites, and eastern peoples gathered in the valley of Jezreel. The Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon, and he blew the trumpet, summoning Abiezer, Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali to follow. Yet Gideon sought confirmation. If you will save Israel by my hand, let the fleece on the threshing floor be wet with dew and the ground dry. In the morning it was so. Then he said, Let it now be dry upon the fleece and wet on all the ground. And God did so that night. Judges 7. Gideon's 300 Jerubbaal, called Gideon, rose early with his men and camped by the well of Harod. Across the valley, the Midianites lay like swarms of locusts. The Lord said, Your army is too many. If I give victory now, Israel will boast it was their own strength. So Gideon proclaimed, Whoever is fearful, let him depart. 22,000 fled, 10,000 remained. Still the Lord said, Too many. He brought them to the water. Those who knelt to drink were set aside, but those who lapped with hand to mouth were chosen. Only 300 were left. The Lord said, By these 300 I will deliver Midian. Send the rest home. That night the Lord told Gideon, Arise, go down to the camp, for I have delivered it into your hand. If you fear, go with your servant to hear what they say. Gideon went and heard a Midianite telling a dream. I saw a barley loaf tumble into the camp, striking a tent till it fell. His comrade replied, This is nothing but the sword of Gideon. God has delivered Midian into his hand. Hearing this, Gideon bowed in worship. He returned, crying to his men, Arise, the Lord has given Midian into our hand. He divided the 300 into 3 companies, gave each a trumpet and an empty pitcher with a torch hidden inside. At the edge of the camp, at the beginning of the middle watch, they blew their trumpets, broke the pitchers, and cried, The sword of the Lord and of Gideon. They stood firm, surrounding the camp. The Lord caused panic. Midian turned sword against sword, fleeing to Beth-shittah and beyond. Gideon sent messengers through Ephraim, Seize the waters before them. The men of Ephraim captured the fords of Jordan and took the princes Oreb and Zeb, slaying them and bringing their heads to Gideon. Thus, with only 300, armed with torches, trumpets, and faith, God overthrew the mighty host of Midian. Judges 8. Gideon's pursuit and refusal of kingship. The men of Ephraim quarreled with Gideon. "Why did you not summon us sooner?" Gideon answered with humility, "What have I done compared to you? Did not God give Oreb and Zeb into your hands?" Their anger subsided. Gideon and his 300, faint yet relentless, pursued the kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna. At Sukkoth he asked for bread, but the elders mocked, "Have you already captured the kings?" He swore, "When the Lord delivers them, I will tear your flesh with thorns." At Penuel he asked again, but the men refused. He vowed, "I will break down this tower." Pressing forward, Gideon surprised the Midianite host at Karkor, about 15,000 men, remnants of a once vast army. He captured Zebah and Zalmunna, scattering their camp. Returning, he seized a young man of Sukkoth who wrote down the names of its elders. Gideon rebuked them and punished them with thorns. He tore down the tower of Penuel and slew the men there. He turned to the captured kings. "What manner of men did you slay at Tabor?" They answered, "They were as you, each resembling a prince." Gideon declared, "They were my brothers, my mother's sons. As the Lord lives, had you spared them, I would spare you." He commanded his eldest Jephthah to slay them, but the boy feared. Then Gideon himself rose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, taking the ornaments from their camels' necks. The men of Israel cried, "Rule over us, you, your son, and your son's son, for you have delivered us from Midian." Gideon refused, "I will not rule over you, nor my son. The Lord shall rule over you." Yet he asked for the golden earrings of the spoil. They spread a garment, and the gold weighed 1,700 shekels, besides ornaments and garments of kings. Gideon made an ephod and set it in Ophrah, but Israel whored after it, and it became a snare. In Gideon's days the land rested 40 years. He had many wives and 70 sons, and a concubine in Shechem bore Abimelech. After Gideon, Jerubbaal died, Israel turned again to idols, forgetting the Lord and showing no kindness to his house. Thus the man who refused a crown left a people who soon forgot their deliverer. Judges 9. Abimelech's ruthless reign. Abimelech, son of Jerubbaal by a concubine in Shechem, rose with ambition. He spoke to his mother's kin, "Which is better, that 70 sons rule you, or one? Remember, I am your bone and flesh." Persuaded, the men of Shechem gave him 70 pieces of silver from the temple of Baal-berith. With this he hired worthless men, and they followed him. He went to Ophrah and slew his 70 brothers upon one stone, save Jotham the youngest, who escaped. The men of Shechem then crowned Abimelech king by the oak of the pillar in Shechem. When Jotham heard, he stood on Mount Gerizim and lifted his voice with a parable. The trees sought a king. They asked the olive, but it refused. They asked the fig and the vine, but they would not leave their fruit. Then the bramble said, "Come under my shadow, but if not, let fire go forth and consume the cedars." He cried, "If you have acted justly, rejoice in Abimelech. But if not, let fire come from him to devour you, and from you to consume him." Then Jotham fled. Abimelech ruled Israel 3 years. But God sent an evil spirit between him and the men of Shechem, that their treachery might return upon them. They dealt deceitfully, lying in wait on the highways. Gaal, son of Ebed, came and stirred rebellion. "Who is Abimelech, that we should serve him? Is not Shechem of Hamor our father?" Zebul, the city's ruler under Abimelech, warned him secretly. Abimelech rose by night with his men, lying in ambush. At dawn Gaal mocked, but Zebul said, "Where now is your mouth? Go out and fight." Gaal went forth, but Abimelech drove him back. Zebul expelled him and his brethren from Shechem. The next day the people went into the fields. Abimelech ambushed them, divided his men into companies, and slew the people. He razed the city, sowed it with salt, and burned 1,000 men and women who had taken refuge in the tower of Shechem. Then he marched to Thebez, took the city, and pressed toward its strong tower. As he drew near to burn it, a woman cast a millstone that struck his skull. Mortally wounded, he cried to his armor-bearer, "Slay me, that men say not, a woman slew him." The young man thrust him through, and he died. Thus God repaid Abimelech for his brother's blood, and upon the men of Shechem he brought their own wickedness. Cry for redemption. Judges 10. Israel's cry for mercy. After Abimelech, Tola son of Puah of Issachar rose to deliver Israel. He lived in Shamir in Mount Ephraim and judged for 23 years before dying and being buried there. After him came Jair of Gilead, who judged 22 years. He had 30 sons who rode 30 donkeys and ruled 30 cities in Gilead, called Havoth Jair. When Jair died, he was buried in Kamon. But Israel again abandoned the Lord. They served the Baals, Ashtaroth, and the gods of Syria, Sidon, Moab, Ammon, and the Philistines. In turning from him, they provoked his anger. The Lord gave them over to their enemies, and for 18 years they were crushed by the Ammonites in Gilead. The Ammonites also crossed the Jordan to fight against Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim, leaving Israel in anguish. Then the people cried out, "We have sinned against you, for we forsook our God and served idols." The Lord replied, "Did I not deliver you from Egypt, from the Amorites, Ammonites, Philistines, Sidonians, Amalekites, and Maonites when you cried out? Yet you turned again to other gods. Therefore I will deliver you no more. Go, cry to the gods you have chosen, let them save you." In desperation Israel confessed, "We have sinned. Do to us as you see fit, only deliver us now." They cast away their idols and served the Lord, and his soul was grieved for their misery. As the armies of Ammon gathered against them in Gilead, the Israelites encamped at Mizpeh and asked one another, "Who will lead us against Ammon? He shall be ruler over all Gilead." Judges 11. Jephthah the outcast. Judge Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty warrior, yet born of a harlot. His brothers cast him out, declaring, "You shall not inherit in our father's house." He fled to Tob, where worthless men gathered to him as their leader. When war broke out with Ammon, the elders of Gilead came, pleading, "Come, be our captain, that we may fight." Jephthah answered, "Did you not hate me and drive me out? Why seek me now?" They swore before the Lord, "Be our head, and we will obey." So Jephthah returned, ruler and commander. He first sent messengers to the Ammonite king. "Why do you come against us?" The king replied, "Israel took my land when they came from Egypt. Restore it now." Jephthah answered with history and law, "Israel did not seize Moab or Ammon. When they journeyed from Egypt, they asked passage and were denied. They fought Sihon, king of the Amorites, and took his land, which the Lord gave them. For 300 years Israel has dwelt here. Why seek it now? I have not sinned against you, but you wrong me in war. The Lord, judge of all, decide this day." But the king of Ammon ignored his words. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah. He passed through Gilead and Manasseh, advancing against Ammon. Jephthah vowed to the Lord, "If you give me victory, whatever comes out of my house to meet me shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up." The battle raged, and the Lord delivered Ammon into his hand. 20 cities fell, and Israel crushed them with great slaughter. Jephthah returned home to Mizpah, and behold, his daughter, his only child, came forth to meet him, with timbrels and dancing. When he saw her, he tore his clothes and cried, "Alas, my daughter, you have brought me low. I opened my mouth to the Lord and cannot turn back." She answered with courage, "Father, if you have vowed to the Lord, do according to your word, for he has given you victory. Only grant me 2 months to wander the mountains and bewail my virginity." He consented. She went with her companions, weeping her fate. After 2 months she returned, and Jephthah fulfilled his vow. She knew no man. From then it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went yearly to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite. Thus the outcast became deliverer, but his triumph bore a bitter cost. Judges 12, Shibboleth, and the passing of judges. The men of Ephraim gathered in fury against Jephthah, demanding to know why he had not summoned them to fight Ammon. They threatened to burn his house with fire. But Jephthah answered with fire of his own. "I and my people contended greatly with Ammon. I called you, but you did not come. When I saw you would not save me, I put my life in my own hand and went forth. The Lord gave them into my hand. Why do you come now against me?" So Jephthah gathered Gilead's men, and war flamed between Ephraim and Gilead. Ephraim mocked them, calling them fugitives of Israel. But the Gileadites struck them with fierce blows, seizing the fords of Jordan. Whenever a man of Ephraim tried to cross, Gilead tested him with a single word, "Say now, Shibboleth." But Ephraim's tongue betrayed him. He said, "Sibboleth." And there at the river they fell, 42,000 of Ephraim. Jephthah judged Israel 6 years, then died, and was buried in Gilead. After him rose Ibzan of Bethlehem. He judged Israel 7 years. He had 30 sons and gave 30 daughters in marriage abroad and brought 30 wives for his sons. When his days were done, he was buried in Bethlehem. Then Elon the Zebulunite judged Israel 10 years. When he died, they laid him in Aijalon in Zebulun. After him rose Abdon the son of Hillel, a Pirathonite. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys, men of wealth and renown. He judged Israel 8 years. When he died, they buried him in Pirathon, in the land of Ephraim, in the hill country of the Amalekites. Thus the line of judges continued, leaders raised, kingdoms shaken, and the fate of tribes sealed by words spoken and blood spilled at the Jordan. Judges 13, the birth of Samson, foretold. Once again, Israel turned from the Lord, and he gave them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. In Zorah lived a man named Manoah of the tribe of Dan. His wife was barren, yet one day the angel of the Lord appeared to her and declared, "Behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. Drink no wine, touch no strong drink, eat nothing unclean. For the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb. No razor shall come upon his head. He shall begin to deliver Israel from the Philistines." The woman hurried to her husband, saying, "A man of God came to me. His countenance was like the angel of God, too wonderful to behold. He told me I would bear a son, and must drink no wine or unclean thing, for the child shall be holy from the womb until his death." Manoah prayed, "O Lord, let the man of God return, that we may be taught how to raise the child." And God heard him. The angel came again to the woman in the field, and she ran to fetch her husband. Manoah asked, "Are you the man that spoke to my wife?" He answered, "I am." Manoah pleaded, "Tell us how we shall order the child." The angel said, "Of all that I commanded the woman, let her beware. She shall eat nothing of the vine, nor drink wine or strong drink, nor eat anything unclean. All I commanded, she shall keep." Manoah, not knowing he was the angel of the Lord, offered to prepare food. But the angel said, "I will not eat your bread. If you offer it to the Lord." So Manoah prepared a young goat upon the rock, and when the flame rose up from the altar toward heaven, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame. Manoah and his wife fell on their faces. Then they knew it was the angel of the Lord. Manoah trembled, "We shall surely die, for we have seen God." But his wife answered with calm faith, "If the Lord desired to slay us, he would not have accepted our offering, nor shown us such wonders, nor promised us a son." In time the woman bore a son and called his name Samson. The child grew, and the Lord blessed him. The Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in the camp of Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Thus began the story of a deliverer consecrated before birth, a Nazirite destined to rise against the Philistines. Judges 14, Samson's marriage and the riddle. Samson went down to Timnath and saw a Philistine woman who pleased his eyes. He told his father and mother, "Get her for me, for she is right in my sight." They objected, saying, "Is there not a woman among our kin, or among all Israel, that you must go to the uncircumcised Philistines?" But Samson pressed them, not knowing it was of the Lord, who sought an occasion against the Philistines, for they ruled over Israel. As he journeyed to Timnath, a young lion roared against him. The Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he tore the beast apart with his bare hands, as one rends a kid. Yet he told no one of the deed. Later, passing by, he turned aside and saw the lion's carcass, and behold, a swarm of bees and honey within it. He took the honey in his hands, ate, and gave to his parents, but told them not its source. His father went down to speak with the woman, and Samson held a feast, as was the custom of young men. 30 companions were given to him. Samson posed a riddle. Out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. For 3 days they could not solve it. On the 7th day they pressed Samson's wife, threatening her and her father's house. "Entice your husband to reveal the riddle, or we will burn you and your family." She wept before Samson, saying, "You hate me, you do not love me. You have posed a riddle and not told me." Day after day she pressed him with tears until on the 7th day he yielded and told her. She revealed it to her people. Before the sun set, the men of the city said to Samson, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson answered with fire in his words, "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you had not solved my riddle." The Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily. He went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30 men. took their garments, and gave the spoil to those who solved the riddle. Burning with anger, he returned to his father's house. But his wife was given to his companion, whom he had called his friend. Judges 15, Samson's vengeance. After some time, in the season of harvest, Samson went to visit his wife with a young goat. But her father would not let him enter, saying, "I thought you hated her, so I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister fairer? Take her instead." Samson burned with wrath. "This time I shall be blameless in dealing harm to the Philistines." He caught 300 foxes, tied them tail to tail with torches, and set fire to the standing grain, vineyards, and olive groves of the Philistines. The Philistines, learning who had done this, burned his wife and her father with fire. Samson, enraged, struck them down hip and thigh with great slaughter, then withdrew to dwell in the rock of Etam. The Philistines marched into Judah and camped at Lehi. The men of Judah asked, "Why have you come against us?" They answered, "We have come to bind Samson and do to him as he has done to us." 3,000 men of Judah went to Samson at Etam and said, "Do you not know the Philistines rule over us? What have you done?" Samson replied, "I only did to them what they did to me." They said, "We have come to bind you and deliver you to them." Samson agreed, saying, "Swear you will not kill me yourselves." They bound him with 2 new cords and brought him to Lehi. When he came near, the Philistines shouted against him. But the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the ropes became as flax burned with fire, falling from his hands. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, seized it, and struck down 1,000 men. With triumph he declared, "With the jawbone of an ass, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of an ass have I slain 1,000 men." Exhausted with thirst, he cried to the Lord, "You have given this great deliverance through your servant. Shall I now die of thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised?" God split a hollow place at Lehi, and water gushed forth. Samson drank, his spirit revived, and his strength returned. Therefore the place was called En-Hakkore, the spring of the caller. And Samson judged Israel in the days of the Philistines for 20 years. Judges 16, Samson's fall and death. Samson went down to Gaza and lay with a harlot. When the Philistines plotted to kill him, he rose at midnight, seized the city gates with their posts and bar, and carried them to a hill before Hebron. Later, Samson loved a woman in the valley of Sorek named Delilah. The lords of the Philistines came to her. "Entice him and discover the secret of his great strength, that we may bind him. We will reward you with silver." She pleaded with him, but Samson misled her, first saying fresh bowstrings would weaken him, then new ropes, then weaving his hair into a loom. Each time when she cried, "The Philistines are upon you," he broke free, his strength undiminished. Yet Delilah pressed him daily with her words until his soul was vexed to death. At last he revealed, "A razor has never touched my head. I am a Nazirite to God from the womb. If I am shaven, my strength will leave me." Delilah saw he had told all his heart. She lulled him to sleep on her knees, called for a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair, and his strength departed. When the Philistines seized him, they gouged out his eyes and bound him in bronze fetters. Blind, he ground grain in the prison, but the hair of his head began to grow again. The lords of the Philistines gathered to sacrifice to Dagon, rejoicing, "Our God has delivered Samson into our hands." They brought him forth to mock him, and he was set between the pillars. Samson asked the lad guiding him, "Let me feel the pillars that I may lean upon them." The temple was full of men and women, and all the lords of the Philistines were there, about 3,000 on the roof watching. Samson cried to the Lord, "Remember me, O God, and strengthen me this once, that I may be avenged for my 2 eyes." He braced himself against the 2 middle pillars, one with his right hand and the other with his left, and said, "Let me die with the Philistines." He bowed with all his might, and the house collapsed upon the lords and all the people within. So the dead he slew at his death were more than he slew in his life. His brothers and father's house came down, took his body, and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah his father. He had judged Israel 20 years. Judges 17, Micah's idols and the hired priest. There was a man named Micah from the hill country of Ephraim. He confessed to his mother, "The 1,100 shekels of silver taken from you, which you cursed, I have it." She blessed him, saying, I wholly dedicate this silver to the Lord for my son, to make a graven and molten image." Micah restored the silver to her. She gave 200 shekels to a founder who made a carved image and a molten idol, and they were placed in Micah's house. Micah built a shrine, fashioned an ephod and household gods, and consecrated one of his sons to be his priest. In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. Soon after, a young Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, of the family of Judah, but a Levite by tribe, left his town seeking a place to dwell. Traveling, he came to the house of Micah in the hill country of Ephraim. Micah asked him, "From where do you come?" The Levite answered, "I am of Bethlehem, Judah, a Levite, seeking a place." Micah said, "Dwell with me, and be a father and priest to me. I will give you 10 shekels of silver yearly, your clothing and food." The Levite agreed and stayed, becoming as one of Micah's own sons. Micah consecrated him, and the young Levite became his priest, living in his house. Then Micah declared, "Now I know the Lord will prosper me, seeing I have a Levite as my priest." Judges 18. The Danites and Micah's idols. In those days, Israel had no king. The tribe of Dan sought territory to dwell in, for they had not yet received their full inheritance. They sent 5 valiant men from Zorah and Eshtaol to spy out the land. On their journey, they came to Micah's house and lodged there. Hearing the voice of the young Levite, they asked, "Who brought you here? What are you doing in this place?" He answered, "Micah hired me, and I serve him as priest." They said, "Inquire of God for us, that we may know if our journey shall prosper." The priest replied, "Go in peace. Your way is under the eye of the Lord." The spies came to Laish and saw the people living secure, quiet, and unsuspecting, with no ruler to protect them. They returned to their brothers, saying, "The land is good. God has given it into our hand. Do not delay. Let us go up and possess it." So 600 armed men of Dan set out with their families and goods. On the way they came again to Micah's house. The 5 spies told their brethren, "In this house there are an ephod, images, and a priest. Take them." While 600 warriors stood at the gate, the 5 entered, seized the graven image, molten idol, ephod, and teraphim. The priest asked, "What are you doing?" They answered, "Be silent. Come with us and be a father and priest to a tribe in Israel. Is it better to serve one man or a whole people?" The priest's heart was glad, and he went with them, carrying the idols. When Micah discovered the theft, he gathered his neighbors and pursued the Danites, crying out. But the Danites shouted, "Do not let your voice be heard among us, lest angry men fall upon you." Seeing their strength, Micah turned back, powerless to recover his gods and his priest. The Danites came to Laish, struck it with the sword, and burned it with fire. There was none to rescue, for the city was far from others and had no allies. They rebuilt it, dwelt there, and called it Dan, after their ancestor. They set up Micah's graven image, and Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Moses, and his sons became priests for the tribe until the day of captivity. Thus the people of Dan worshipped Micah's idol all the time. The house of God stood in Shiloh. Judges 19. The Levite and his concubine. In the days when Israel had no king, there was a Levite living in the hill country of Ephraim. He took a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah, but she was unfaithful and left him, returning to her father's house. After 4 months, the Levite set out to win her back. Her father welcomed him gladly, and for 5 days detained him with food and drink. At last, despite the lateness of the day, the Levite departed with his concubine and servant. Near Jebus, Jerusalem, his servant urged, "Let us lodge here." But the Levite said, "We will not stay in a city of foreigners. We will press on to Gibeah of Benjamin." They arrived at Gibeah as night fell, but no one took them in. At last, an old man returning from the field saw them in the square and brought them to his house, offering food and shelter. But as they feasted, wicked men of the city surrounded the house, crying out, "Bring out the man who came to your house, that we may abuse him." The host pleaded, "Do not act so vilely. Here is my virgin daughter and his concubine. Do to them as you will, but do not commit this outrage against the man." So they seized the Levite's concubine and abused her through the night until dawn. At daybreak she fell at the door of the house, where her master found her lifeless. In anguish, he lifted her upon his donkey and returned home. There he took a knife, divided her body into 12 pieces, and sent them throughout all Israel, saying, "Consider this evil, and speak your counsel." And all who saw it cried out, "Such a deed has never been done, nor seen from the day Israel came up out of Egypt to this day. Give counsel and speak." Judges 20, Civil War against Benjamin. All Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, assembled at Mizpah before the Lord, 400,000 men of war. The Levite recounted the outrage of Gibeah, how the men of Benjamin had committed abomination against his concubine, leading to her death. Israel sent word to the tribe of Benjamin, "Deliver up the wicked men of Gibeah, that we may put them to death and purge Israel of evil." But the Benjamites would not listen. Instead, they gathered 26,000 warriors, plus 700 chosen men skilled with the sling, left-handed, and deadly accurate. The tribes of Israel arose against Benjamin. They inquired of God, "Who shall go up first?" And the Lord said, "Judah shall go first." On the first day Israel advanced, but Benjamin struck down 22,000 men. On the second day Israel wept before the Lord and went again, yet Benjamin slew 18,000 more. A third time Israel came to Bethel, fasting and offering burnt offerings. They inquired of the Lord, and Phinehas the priest stood before the ark. The Lord answered, "Go up tomorrow, for I will deliver them into your hand." On the third day, Israel set an ambush around Gibeah. Benjamin came out, striking down men as before, thinking victory was theirs. But Israel drew them into the open. The ambush rushed upon Gibeah, set the city ablaze, and turned the battle. When Benjamin saw the smoke rising from the city, their hearts melted. Israel turned back upon them, and the Lord delivered Benjamin into their hands. 18,000 fell at first, then 5,000 more were cut down in retreat, and 2,000 more in pursuit, 25,000 in all, mighty men of valor. Only 600 Benjamite men escaped to the rock of Rimmon, where they hid for 4 months. All the rest of their tribe, their cities, and even their women and children were destroyed by the sword. Thus Israel purged the evil from its midst, but the cost was heavy. Brother fighting brother, tribe against tribe, and sorrow spread throughout the land. Judges 21, Wives for Benjamin. The men of Israel had sworn at Mizpah, "None of us shall give his daughter to Benjamin as wife." After the slaughter, the people gathered at Bethel, weeping bitterly. "O Lord, God of Israel, why has one tribe been cut off this day?" They built an altar and offered sacrifices. Yet their oath bound them and grief consumed them. They asked, "Who among the tribes did not come up to Mizpah before the Lord?" For the punishment of such was death. It was found that none from Jabesh-Gilead had joined the assembly. So Israel sent 12,000 valiant men to Jabesh-Gilead, commanding, "Strike with the sword every male and every woman who has lain with a man." They spared 400 young virgins, whom they brought to Shiloh, and gave them to the 600 surviving men of Benjamin. Yet there were not enough. The elders of Israel said, "How shall we provide wives for those that remain? For we have sworn not to give them of our daughters." They devised another plan. Each year there is a feast of the Lord in Shiloh. They told the Benjamites, "Go, hide in the vineyards. When the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance, seize them each a wife and flee to the land of Benjamin. If their fathers or brothers complain, we will say, 'Grant them to us, for we could not give wives to them without breaking our oath.'" The Benjamites did so, taking wives from the dancers of Shiloh. They rebuilt their cities and dwelt in them again. Then the children of Israel dispersed, each to his tribe and family, every man to his inheritance. And the book closes with this haunting refrain: "In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes."